many years. I've got a Bachelor in Learning Management, which allows me to teach in Australia, and I've also taught overseas in South Korea and Cambodia. I also have a graduate certificate in journalism. I've been a web conferencing facilitator for teachers, and I've also competed internationally in martial arts. Andreas has a PhD in computational intelligence. He is a published author of a chapter, and he's presented his publications in Hong Kong, Prague, and Barcelona. He also has a Bachelor in Computer Science. He's a senior software engineer. He's also had experience teaching in Tanzania and Cambodia, and ventured all over the world, including Ecuador, Egypt, and Burma. He's also served in the Austrian Army and played in the National Road Polo League. So, basically, what we want to talk about today, but we are talking about ways to resolve conflict, but we want to explain to you why this is important for us and why we're actually doing this and even offering this free workshop. We see that there's lots of problems in the world. Anyone who attended C Day, I think you're the only one who made that. Yeah. We've seen this slide before, that we don't want to live in a world like this, with poverty, animal cruelty, and war and greed. So we think there is a way out, but it's not easy. The only viable solution that we've found so far is called a resource-based economy. A resource-based economy was dubbed by Jacques Fresco, which is this man down here that you can see. And basically, it's a system that's based on resource management rather than money. So if you would like to know more about that, then I urge you to look more into the Zeitgeist movement, as well as into the Venus Project. With what we're trying to do, we're trying to help people determine what human needs are. And these are actually our basic human needs, a few of them, not all of them. The ones in the middle are our basic human needs, and the ones around the outside are also needs, but things that people don't usually pay attention to. So we also have a need for freedom. We also have a need for community participation, for love, for recreation, for meaning and purpose in our lives. Do we all agree? It's more than just the basic needs. Yeah. So what we've done is developed a framework called THN, which is about, we think all these needs can be met in a sustainable way. And the way to do that is to provide facilities that support technology, human potential, and nature. So all three of these things must support each other in order for the facility to be to minimize exploitation and to meet needs for everybody. So this would be the opposite, not THN, where everyone's exploiting each other. And we've got a little extra one here where people are exploiting. Here are some examples of things that are not THN. Things like factories that create pollution, overfishing, weapons, fracking, advertisements on TV, and even cars. We would call that not THN, with the cars that, I guess the cars that exist right now. That not exist right now, the cars that are traditionally used at the moment, using fuel. Also included in that, litter, animal
invasive species.
Yeah, invasive species, thank you. Crime, hunting, even organized religion. These things can exploit people. So what THN is the use of technology, human potential and nature to support technology, human potential and nature to meet human needs now and in the future. Here's some examples of what it is. Aquaponic systems, a technology that provides food for people using technology. Earthships, robotics. A lot of people in the Zeitgeist movement have quite a lot of knowledge on these kind of facilities that are up and coming. And so if you do want to know more about that, then just get in touch with us and we can talk to you more about that. Also, nonviolent communication, which is what we'll talk about today. The three-legged protocol, wikis. Science and secularity. do with Sharewhale is share open source information, provide free workshops, as we are doing right now, promote THN businesses, so other businesses that would support this framework, provide membership to access those facilities easily, that's what we'd like to do in the long term, support projects that fit under the THN framework, and what we're doing today is encouraging people to become project leaders in sustainable projects and THN within the THN framework, and working towards developing an urban earthship or shop. Okay, so now this will start an actual presentation. 3 ways to get what you want without conflict. Now this is your turn. I want you to think about, and obviously this can be quite personal, so it's up to you if you'd like to think about a conflict that's happening in your life, whether it be with your partner, with your friend, with family, could be your kids, your parents, or your siblings, or a conflict maybe at work, with your boss or colleagues or your employees if you are a boss. So has everyone got a few things in mind? It doesn't matter, just one little conflict, even something as simple as like being annoyed at your housemate for not doing the dishes. It's not like it has to be a huge thing. So what are some common conflicts about that you have? We have task allocation, which is who should do what, basically. People not listening. Money's a big one, and how to spend it. And fears. Fears for your own fears and maybe the other party's fears, which can create conflict. So here are the 3 ways to avoid conflict but still have your needs met. Communication, decision making, and project management. I'm going to talk about communication today, and I'm going to hand over to Andreas to talk about the other 2. And I want to talk about non-violent communication in particular. So non-violent communication was developed by Marshall Rosenberg. And it's about feelings rather than thoughts. It's about having empathy for the other person that you're in conflict with, and it's about having everyone's needs met. So I'll just put on a short video now. Marshall Rosenberg, yeah.
Do you know what nationality he is?
He's American.
He's American? Okay.
Yeah. Just before we go any further, I've done a lot of research on nonviolent communication. However, please forgive me, I do not have formal qualifications in it. So I would like, when I discuss this and share my ideas, it is a discussion. Okay, so some of the things in here, I'm still formulating what I think as well, and I'd love to hear your feedback on what you think as well. But yeah, so basically, I would love to get formal qualifications. I think that's my next thing I'm going to work on with this. So the research that I have done, basically what violent communication is, it's subjective or opinionated. It doesn't matter if that opinion is positive, it's still, if you use opinionated language, then that can lead to violence. Also, it makes assumptions about the other person without actually knowing anything about what is truly alive in them. Also, it builds ego and builds inequality, as Marshall Rosenberg was talking about. And just so you know, we all do it. We're all guilty of it because it has been, present for at least 8,000 years. So it's very difficult to actually to change that behaviour when you've been brought up like that, and so if your parents and those parents have been trained to speak in a violent way. And you'll see what I mean. So here's some common violent things that you may have said that I still say sometimes. You make me feel a certain way. I'm sure we've all done that. But the reality is, no one person can make you feel a certain way. A feeling that's inside of you is something that has so many different reasons for existing. It might be also because of that person, but what about your experience as a child that would influence the way you feel about a particular situation? And there's so many other factors. You could even talk about genetic factors that might go into it or whatever. There's so many things. So saying you make me feel a certain way will often lead to conflict. Also, you always do that. Always is very subjective. I've told you a million times, and why don't you listen? You never listen to me. So it's quite typical for everyone to say things like this, to say these just lines that your parents probably said to you. So of course they spill out of our mouths, like it's very easy to do. Some other ones I've noted down here. We won't touch on these too much today, but if you really are interested in this, I suggest looking more into it. Even saying something like, I have to do it, is violent. Very violent indeed. Because this is the type of official language when you say, I was given orders. Shoot someone. I was given orders to do it. I didn't have the choice. You know, superior's orders. It's nothing to, so the sudden you start using that kind of language, it leads to violence. And even, you're just marvelous. Or you're great. It's subjective.
So like if, as you say, we might have grown up with it. Our parents might have said it to us. Our friends might have said it to us.
Yeah.
So how do we get? What are some of the ways we might be able to get out of this cycle? Do we just have to remind ourselves over and over when we talk before we say anything? Like it's really hard.
It's really hard.
You won't say anything if you think about what everyone feels about what you say.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And we're coming up to some ways that you can communicate how you feel.
Yeah.
And of course, like I'm not saying I don't speak, I don't use these lines. I'm saying just be aware of them when you do say them, but don't criticize others when they do use them. Instead, you know how Marshall Rosenberg was saying. One guy said, "These guys are murderers," and he translated that to, "So your need for safety isn't being met." That's what he heard. He didn't even hear that, the murderers thing. He heard your need for safety isn't being met. So it's about understanding what need is not being met in that other person when they say something like this to you as well. But we can talk about the types of ways to communicate what you need in a situation of conflict. So once again, I'd like you to take your time now to imagine you're in a conflict that you've been in recently. If you have, you're very lucky if you haven't. I'm sure all of us have some kind of conflict. And remember the feelings. Some people even need to close their eyes and actually really think about this. And really imagine remember exactly what was said and how you felt. And also, did you have a request? Was there something that you were asking for from the other person? And that's okay. Is there something you were asking from the other person and it turned into a conflict? Or were they asking for something as well?
And also this, nonviolent communication, it doesn't have to be verbal, is it? Can it be action as well? Or
I'm not sure.
Like body language communication? Are we just looking at verbal at the moment?
We're looking at verbal at the moment.
Okay.
We've only got maybe another 20 minutes to spend on this before we talk about the other, because this is only one way to get what you want without conflict. Where we've got several other ways. So with the short time we've got tonight, we can only touch on a little bit, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But we will have our future leaders course that's coming up next month. We'll get into more detail into it. So let's go on from there. So thinking of this conflict where you had a request, I want you to remember, what did you see, what did you hear? And I think an easier way to do this, let's have a look at our piece of paper here. Now on the left side, you've got clearly expressing how I am without blaming or criticizing. So in this part, what you need to do is to think of what you observed. And you would start your sentence by saying, when I see or hear something, I feel something because I mean something. This is kind of the sentence we're going to formulate tonight. So we're just starting with the observation now because this is difficult. If you say something like, when you leave the kitchen in a disgrace, is this a good way to communicate to somebody if you tell them they leave the kitchen in a disgrace? we would say that's a subjective way of saying that. If you say you leave the kitchen in a disgrace, you are making a judgment of what disgrace means. Now, to two different people, disgrace is a completely different word. One person, the person that they're saying that to might say, no, I don't. It's just a few dirty dishes. You know, like it's completely subjective. So saying something like that is not. It's violent communication. If you say something more objective, exactly what you don't that you don't like that they're doing. Say something more like, you leave the dirty dishes on the sink for too long. Or maybe not even too long. You can't say that.
I don't like the dishes on the sink.
Well, with the I don't like. That's still
okay.
Yeah. So when I see the dirt, it's hard work and it takes a long time, but it starts to become more natural the more you use it. When I see the dirty dishes on the sink, rather than saying when I see a disgusting kitchen. And here's another one now, actually, when I showed Andreas this one, he didn't agree with me, and actually now I'm not sure what I think. But, so this one here, I said, why are you yelling at me? Because this was a similar one to what Marshall Rosenberg talked about. He said, you can't say yelling, because some people just kind of have a loud voice, you know, and they always
I get that all the time. I'm not yelling.
Yeah. So someone says, why are you yelling at me? And you're like, I'm not yelling, that's just
That's
how
not
I
yelling. And
Yeah.
then I get louder.
Yeah. So you might say, are you raising your voice because you feel? So if you've noticed a change in their pitch and voice, that I guess that can be more objective. But even then, I'm still not quite happy with it. You know, I still think that it might sound. What do you guys think? Do you think it still sounds subjective if I say, are you raising your voice because? When you make your voice louder, or even louder, it's anyway. It's difficult.
Can you say like, is your voice getting louder naturally?
Yeah, but it is. But the basic idea is to think about how can you formulate the beginning of this request in an objective way that just even something like you would say when you have a sad look in your face. That's you can't actually. Someone might say, I'm just kind of chilling out. I'm not even trying to look sad. But you know, so a better way to say when you slouch and your eyebrows go in like this, you know, completely objective. That's got no opinion. Yeah. So actually, what the exercise I was going to get you to do, if you'd like, is to actually write your sentence. So I've got pens here, and you can actually write. You can just pass this around if you like.
Thank you.
Is to actually start your sentence. So just start with writing, when I see blah blah blah, or when I hear blah blah blah. And you don't have to share this if it's very personal. It's just up to you. Okay.
Constantly all day long.
Yeah.
So I'm the manager.
All right. Yeah. So you're looking at it from a boss perspective.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I'm instigator.
It's not about blame. Remember, it's not about
Yeah, I don't know how to start.
Yeah. When I
See someone.
So what's
not
something that one of your
doing the causing issues. When I see
Okay.
someone causing issues.
No, because that's still, it's too broad. So causing issues, what exactly are they doing? Are they speaking to somebody?
Speaking to somebody
Okay, and
in the wrong manner.
Like, what is wrong?
Talking down to somebody.
Okay.
Yelling at somebody. Blaming
Okay.
them for something is not wrong, but
Okay.
it's
Maybe they're not yelling.
Maybe they're not yelling.
So they are accusing a certain person for something that they
have
haven't
no
done,
idea about.
or
So they're just flying,
I think
blame around.
I think
What do you call
the accusation might be objective. Like they are saying something has happened that actually did not happen. Possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
It would be great if you could actually identify exactly what they said. So if you say, when you say da 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 da, you know, so when you say to John that he should
Okay. So
something
that's how I
like
start
that.
the sentence.
Yes, exactly what he said that you know that he said.
And then what you're going to then say, when you say to John, whatever,
Yeah.
and you're going to say, do you mean such and such, or how you...
You can.
Where are you going to take it?
There's two ways to go about this. So the left side, I'm just using the left side because it's, otherwise it's another part that gets quite difficult. Because this side is about if you have a request. The right side is about if someone comes at you with a request. And he could actually formulate the question more like if you wanted to be empathetic towards the other person. When you say this to John, do you feel this way because you have a need for something? So you could formulate it that way if you wanted to actually get some insight into why that person is behaving that way. If you want to actually understand why they're doing that. But if you are just if you have a request from them, then you would formulate it the other way. When I see this, I feel this because. Sorry.
But if you say, when I see this, I feel, are we not still getting back to being subjective rather than...
With saying how you feel?
Yeah, I was just wondering whether sometimes it can become dictatorial. When I see this,
This is
am
why
I imposing my...
your
without
dominance.
giving them a chance to... Am I making it a dominant statement?
It shouldn't be, because the way that the sentence actually won't take long to say. It would take about 5 seconds to say, but it takes so long to formulate it because we haven't been trained this way. But really, we should just be able to go, mate, when I see this, I feel this because I have a need for this. Would you be willing to do this? You can just say it that quickly. Or and sometimes people might just be like, no, you can't tell me blah 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 like that. But then if you hear their need, you can say, oh, are you feeling, or is your need for this not being met? So it's kind of more a relaxed dialogue, but we're doing it in a very formulated way right now because we're new. We're still learning about it.
And I think the only proper way, especially now with this example, is to actually use a specific example. So it would be good to know a specific sentence of what exactly they said.
This sounds a bit silly. You might think, oh, it's just silly being angry over this. But I think it was a couple of weeks ago. I didn't see it, so I didn't know. Like maybe they should have a sign somewhere saying, no refunds if it's not DIY. Say on the top. And then at the end she's just like, oh, that's not my problem. And she went to serve the next person in line. And I just felt, you can imagine I was a bit angry, I was a bit upset. I thought, well, I just wasn't respected and they didn't care. So I think that line, that's not my problem, really hit me in the end.
Yeah.
I'm okay about it now.
Yeah. And I guess in that situation, of course, you're not going to get into like, I'm wondering if you're feeling this way, with someone. But the techniques that you can use from this are to actually to see what she's actually saying to you.
Yeah.
Actually, what's the need that's not being met.
Yeah.
And that's why she's saying that's not my problem to you. Instead of just hearing that's not my problem and being like, oh, you're so horrible. Just hear that like empathetically that there's something else going on, and it can just help you feel less disconnected from people, more connected to people, and understanding that their problems as well.
Yeah, it's probably, their policy. It's probably Bunnings' policy not to do that.
Yeah.
But it's not just written out very clearly.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I got upset.
Okay. All right, let's go on to feelings now. So the next part is, when I see something, I feel something. Now feelings can, this one I've got, it's feelings versus thoughts. So you could say something like, I feel blamed, or I feel discouraged, or I feel unloved. But using those kind of feelings is putting blame onto the other person rather than just being really, truly sharing what's alive in you, what's really affecting you. So, sorry, I know it's not easy to see. It says, I feel sad, scared, or angry. Those emotions are a little bit more. I guess you're really sharing what's inside of you, rather than saying that you feel a certain way because of what someone else has done. So, on that, all feelings are valid. It's never fair to say to someone they shouldn't feel a certain way, because you're a human. You know that how you feel is how you feel. It's the action that you take because you feel that way that you have control over. But it's very, very difficult to have control over actually how you feel about something. You can feel, all feelings are valid, and how that person you're in conflict with feels is also valid, but it's not your fault, and it's not your sole responsibility. So rather than getting onto whose fault it is and blaming somebody, it's thinking about being empathetic towards that other person. And so for the conflict that you're in, I want you to think about that now. And I've got all of these feelings on here that you can use, and because these ones were taken from the Nonviolent Communication website. So these are feelings that you might want to use to describe the feeling you're feeling in that conflict. So we've got things like dread, fatigue, frustration, embarrassed, satisfied, there's even positive ones, discouraged, no, not discouraged, frightened, perplexed, when I see something, I feel guilty, feel shocked. Once again, if you're struggling with this or you're not sure if it is a feeling or a thought, then feel free to share that. I think there's quite an international bunch here today as well. And Andreas was saying to me today, because he's from Austria, that some of these words are actually quite difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't need it on the screen.
Yeah.
Useless.
Yeah. And just so you know, nonviolent communication is available in French as well, and German as well.
It's really good.
Yeah. So if it is, yeah, you can find all of these.
You got displeased there.
Displeased.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took
Is
these.
that stronger than
More a thought than a feeling.
Yeah, or more
Attack.
attack than I feel perplexed or puzzled about something.
I think
feeling
also
sad
there is
still
a
not an
range.
attack. If you feel angry, you have every right. If you feel angry, you feel angry. That's it. And it's just your reaction to feeling angry
Yeah.
that's the problem.
I think with the feelings, it's still there is like a range of feelings that have in its word to have an external source or an internal source, and some might be external as well as internal. So I think it's hard to actually say this is valid, this is invalid. It's more to think more internally, because that's also the feelings that you can do something about. Because it's hard to do something about feelings that are caused externally, but you can't do things about feelings that are caused internally.
So is everyone alright with that one now? I don't want to rush because I know it is.
External feeling, you mean you're not your own feeling, someone else's feeling?
No, your own feeling, but caused by someone or something else.
Okay.
But that's
Yeah.
never ever the case. Your feelings are always caused by something within you. Of course, there's an external influence, but it's still your feeling. It's no one else's feeling.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the last part. So far we should have when I see this, I feel this, because I need or I have a need for. Actually, the way that I normally put it is I have a need for. Now on this too, we wouldn't want you to put I have a need for a car. that's not a human need. A human need are things like love, freedom, community, acceptance, those things that we wrote at the beginning. Think of a need that all of us have. Do we all have a need for a car? Do we all have a need for a holiday? No, but we all have a need for freedom. We all have a need for community. We all have a need for food. So those ones are valid needs. Something that any human can connect with.
in the feelings, I put food, but that's not the thing, right? Food?
Fooled
Yeah.
for the feeling. Yeah, because it could be a little bit subjective.
Yeah, exactly. It means someone else has been fooling me, so I'm
Yeah.
getting the solution.
Yeah, it's something to think about. If you think that you can communicate that to the other person without them saying, "But I'm not trying to fool you," then that's okay. But it's just something to think about. Is there another way that you could say it?
Yeah.
Do you feel confused or angry? Do you feel?
Angry was my second one, so I guess it's okay.
Yeah. Okay, so how are we going? Has everyone got a sentence?
Yes.
You got one?
I do.
Yeah. How do you feel about using that sentence?
Fine.
That's good. How about everyone else? How do you feel about using it to actually communicating, using that sentence with the other party?
I'm not sure the way he would react.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he would be very happy.
Yeah.
Like,
why is that?
That's because he,
so me, it's with my boss,
Okay.
and I think he doesn't like when it's speaking about feelings. I think he would not understand. He would like
Okay.
look strange and.
Yeah.
But I'm happy with myself.
Yeah, and
next time I will try.
I know that some people feel like, and like I've watched a lot of Marshall Rosenberg's conferences, and people always say, "I feel weird saying this." You know, they're like, it just feels weird. And then he always says, it's because you've been trained to speak in an unnatural way. And actually, this is the best way you could possibly communicate with somebody. You're getting down to the core of who you are and who that other person is. So if you can just use that confidence, and even if they know that you know about nonviolent communication, and they're like, "Oh, are you using that NVC stuff on me again?" You can just say, "Well, yes, because I want to communicate more effectively with you.
But
I want to have a better relationship with you."
I think it's worth mentioning how you used it in Cambodia too.
Oh yeah, an example of mine.
Because it worked.
Yeah, but it was tough, man. It was tough.
Generally,
Yeah.
there was like a big conflict with a person that, like, I have met him as well, and it's really difficult to talk to him. And Casey told me about how she did it, just the steps with nonviolent communication, and they came to a solution.
I was so nervous. I remember going in there like, okay, I have a need, no. And it was really strange because he didn't pick up on the fact that I was doing it. He just was like, oh, thank you for sharing that with me, I didn't realise. All of a sudden, you connected with him on this level, instead of just being like, I'm so sick of the way you treat me and everything like that. We had screaming matches, it was terrible. So, yeah, really terrible. So, it was great that we sorted that out. Yeah.
isn't there also like the whole thing about having the other person going through the process as well? Because it's a good thing that you're going and you say, okay, I do it that way, I do this and this.
Yeah.
But then if the other person doesn't go through the same process, does it work as efficiently?
Of course it wouldn't work as efficiently, not at all. It would, but the thing is, you can't force somebody to go and learn nonviolent communication, but you can hear them differently.
That's why you have the right side as well.
That's true. I think that's really important, is to hear somebody in a way.
Hear the need.
How you actually are brought up to make things mean something.
Yeah, you hear the need, not the evaluation. So if they say, oh, I think you're an idiot, like if you actually understand nonviolent communication, you don't even hear that. All you would hear straight away is, oh, what need isn't being met of this? Instead of taking it personally. So yeah, this is the question. Would you be willing to? You can follow it with that question. And the last part that I wanted to talk about was the right side, which we really didn't touch on, but we don't have much time tonight because we need to get on to the next part. Try to empathize with the other person. So this is what I was talking about. Understand that they're saying this because they have a need and that isn't being met. And imagine literally being in their shoes. If you do want to learn more about nonviolent communication, you can learn more at our workshop coming up next month, the Future Leaders Workshop. But I highly recommend researching online. It's free. And you can't see the site there, but it says, I don't know if you guys can see that very well.
NBCtraining.com.
Yeah, nbctraining.com, or just YouTube Marshall Rosenberg. Yeah, I don't know, is it easy to see from there? Maybe it's from this side. No. And, or just YouTube nonviolent communication, and there's a whole heap of stuff that you can find.
Considering your question as well, how can we learn about it? Like you can't just do it.
Yeah.
What you can do is think about situations and write down sentences. That's one thing that you can do. And also, if there is a specific conflict that you want to solve, one thing that you can do is to prepare for it. And then I think if you just try again and again, and it will come more naturally.
It becomes more natural. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to say, Marshall Rosenberg always uses puppets. And he uses like a jackal on one hand, a little jackal puppet, and a giraffe puppet. And the jackal's like the violent communicator, and the giraffe is the non-violent communicator. And he uses the giraffe because it has the biggest heart out of any random.
Oh.
Yeah. And so they're really good to watch because he actually basically has a discussion with himself using violent communication, then using non-violent communication to see how that works. But there's actually giraffe schools in several places all around the world where they're actually training children to communicate this way. So actually when they grow up, they won't have like the struggles that we'll have with this because they'll naturally be able to pick up on things like that. Yeah. So anyway.